the AP CSA 2021 FRQ. So this question involves manipulating a two-dimensional array of integers. You will write two static methods, okay, of the ArrayResizer class. So this is the class ArrayResizer. So the first that has to be implemented in part A is the method is non-zero row. So it takes a 2D array as a parameter and also int r, that's the row number. And the thing is, it returns true if and only if every value in row r of the array 2D is non-zero. That's to be implemented in part A. We don't really need any other information. This information by itself is sufficient. So let's go ahead and start doing part A of this particular thing, please. Okay. All right. Yeah, here it is. So now the thing is over here. So the first thing is, now let's go ahead and see this. So you have the method is public static boolean is non-zero to the array over here. So I'm going to write the solution over here. It's going to be a simple solution. So the thing is over here, we need to go through the row number. The row number is given to us and we need to go through that particular row. So now say for example over here, they've given the example if ARR is 0. So when I go through the 0th row over here, when I go through the row, this particular thing has a 0 value, that's why it's returning a false, whereas for 1 it's returning a true, and even for 3 it's returning a true. Now if we have to go through a particular row, then what we need to do is we need to find out how many columns are there in that row. So the name of the 2D array is array2D. So what we are going to do is we're just simply going to go through that particular row. So how we will do that is simply use a for loop for remember I have to go through the row, that means I have to go through each column. So that means I'm going to say int j is equal to 0. You can say I, whatever, whichever variable you wish. Now this is important. So j is less than. So the thing is over here, the number of columns. So please note the number of columns is nothing but going to be array 2D of this particular row number. So array 2D of r dot length. That will be the case over here, and j plus plus. And the thing is over here, if array 2D of the same row number r and the column number j is equal to 0. If it becomes equal to 0, then immediately I am going to simply return false. And outside the loop, if I come outside the loop, that means there was no value for which you were able to, there was no value which was equal to 0. That means if you're coming out of the loop, that means none of the values are 0. Then you can simply say return true. That is pretty much it. That's pretty much it in this particular thing. One of the places where people can make a mistake is over here is this condition of the for loop. That might be important, and this if condition over here, if it is 0, then you should return false. A very common mistake might be to write an if then else over here. You can't say that. You can only say it after the whole loop is done and after you've seen each and every value. So please don't put an if then else over here. You can only say return true at the end. But if it is equal to 0, if any one of them also equals 0, you can immediately stop and just return false as it is. That's what we did over here. So this method may be a total of maybe I guess 2 to 3 marks, not more. Over here for sure this will be 1 mark. For this checking might be 1 mark, and returning the right thing at the right time might be 1 mark. So 3 marks for this particular method. All right, so that was part A. So now let's go ahead and see part B, and let's read the question again. So proceeding ahead, it says returns the number of rows in array 2D that contain all non-zero values. So this is the method num non-zeros, which takes a 2D array and it returns a number of non-zero rows. Now this implementation is not shown. We don't have to implement this particular method. It's just there and it's given to us. The one that we have to implement is in part B. It's the resize method, which is returning a new 2D array, and it takes a 2D array as a parameter. So what is it saying? It's a new, possibly smaller, two-dimensional array that contains only rows from array 2D with no zeros. So with no zeros, only those particular things we have to be returning. So let's go ahead and see what this method is all about. Let's see more description about it. It says the method is resize, returns a 2-dimensional array containing only rows with all non-zero values, should appear in the same order as they appeared in the original array. So this is a particular array, and when you say array resizer is called, the resize is called on this particular 2D array, then we see that there's only two rows over here, just this particular row and this particular row. And this is the important part over here. They said that a helper method num non-zeros has been provided to you. So we have to use the num non-zeros method in order to get our solution over here, and it returns the number of rows that contain no zero values. And it is also said that is non-zero row works as specified, what we did in part A, regardless of what we wrote. And let's go ahead and write the method over here. So it's going to be slightly longer method. So this is what it is: a public static int resize, and this is int, it's returning a 2D array, int 2D array resize int array 2D. Now the thing is over here in this particular case, now the first thing is we need to return a new 2D array. That means we need to first create a new 2D array. The number of columns of the new array is same as the number of columns of the original array. You can see that over here. The number of columns are the same, but the number of rows are going to be different. Now, how do we get the number of rows? So before we create the 2D array, we need to find the number of rows. And for the number of rows, they have said that you can use this method num non-zero rows over here. So let's first use the method, see how the method looks like. So it is num non-zero rows, and it takes a 2D array as a parameter and just returns an integer. So let's go ahead and do that over here. So this is int n non-zero rows is equal to, the name of the method is num non-zero rows, so we will call the method num non-zero rows, and we saw that it takes a 2D array as a parameter. We need to find it for this particular array itself, so we will pass array 2D as the parameter over here. Now we got the NZ rows over here. The number of columns is going to be the same number of columns as the array 2D. So now we have the number of rows and we can find out the number of columns. So we can go ahead and create a new 2D array. So the thing is over here int. So you can say, I'm going to call it maybe say mat is equal to new int. And the number of rows is going to be this n zeros that we have calculated, n zeros, and the number of columns is going to be the same number of columns in this. So over here we can simply just do array 2D of 0, the first row's length. Just do that much, that is enough. So creating a new 2D array. Now the thing is over here, now we need to go through the array 2D. Okay, so now when we are going through the array 2D, we need to check each and every row. So how do we do that? So let's go ahead and go through each row. So going through each row, we'll have a for loop. For int I is equal to 0, I is less than over here array 2D dot the number of rows of array 2d can be found out by array 2d dot length. That's the number of rows, and then I plus plus. Then simply what we can do is we need to now check whether the ith row has any zero, non-zero or zero values or not. So the thing is, over here the method for that, what we did in part A is non-zero row. So if it is a non-zero, row, so that means over here we are going to say if, now the thing is it's a non-zero, I think the method name is non-zero row, and if you see, it takes as parameter is a 2d array and the row number. So the 2d array, so array 2d, which is the same, and the row number, so row number I. If it is equal to true, that means if it is, it's a non-zero row. If it is there, then we need to copy that particular row in our new matrix. Now in order to do that, now there can be two ways of doing this. Now one way is we could just copy the references of the 2d array of the original array 2d and into the new one, or we can individually go ahead and copy each and every value. So let's go ahead and copy each and every value in that particular thing. So the thing is, over here now the number of rows in mat will definitely, may or may not be the same as array 2d. Now I is indicate the row number in array 2d, which may not be the same row number in mat. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another variable int, I'm going to say r is equal to 0. So for that particular row number, we are going to first copy it in that row number. So thing is, what we'll do is we'll have a simple for loop. So what we will do is for loop, now we'll copy all the particular row values. So int j is equal to 0. If j is less than array 2d of 0 dot length, we are going through that particular row, and j plus plus. So whatever is there in, now we need to copy it in the mat. So whatever is there in array 2d of I, j, the same has to be copied in the same column number j, but the row number is r. The row number is r over here. Because it's possible, like for example over here in the first case here, I is going to be 0, but this row is not copied in mat. But this case I is 1 and your row number will be 0 in mat because this is present in the first row. So mat of rj is equal to array 2d of ij. Once the values of that entire row are copied, then I will go ahead and increase my r. So I will do an r plus plus over here. Please note this is all within the if over here. If it is not a non-zero row, if this condition is, if it is a 0 row or it has a 1 0, then this particular if condition won't be satisfied and you'll go ahead and do an I plus plus. Please note that this part could be, you could avoid this for loop and you can avoid the R and everything if you just copy the references as well. That would probably look something like over here is simply like mat of, so the if condition over here, the same if condition over here, and then simply mat of r is equal to array 2d of I, and then sorry, the r will be there, and then you have r plus plus. So you can avoid doing the for loop if you don't want to copy the value one by one, just the reference will get copied over there. And that is it. Once the 2d array is created, we simply return the 2d array. The 2d array is mat in this particular case. So this was a slightly tricky method, I would say, and probably will definitely be the place where I think most of us would not get the right answer, but still. So okay, definitely for doing this, now the mark allocation would go something like this, I guess. This is 1 mark for sure for getting this particular thing, definitely 1 mark for making the new matrix. um, Definitely 1 mark for writing this if condition, definitely 1 mark for going through each row of this particular thing. Now this whole thing might be 1 to 2 marks, I guess, depending on how much they want to give this weightage. And of course, having a new variable might make a difference, and then maybe returning the final matrix might be 1 mark. So this method maybe, I mean, maybe 5 to 6 marks depending on how the part A is allocated. But yes, I think if this particular method, if not done, the maximum that you could lose is maybe just a couple of marks, is what I feel. So yeah, this was the final question of the APCSA 2021 FRQ. Thank you.